Hi, I'm psychic medium Jamie Lynn, and welcome to the Electric Spirit Podcast. Today on the show, we have professional astrologer Leslie Hale. And Leslie has been studying astrology for more than 30 years and has worked with over 5,000 clients worldwide. She offers professional astrology readings by phone, and she publishes monthly horoscopes and transit updates via her website. Her is practical, empowering, and refreshing and honest. Leslie specializes in helping people understand the timing of their lives, identifying opportunity windows for love, money, career, and major life changes, while also preparing those inevitable down cycles so they can be navigated with clarity and confidence. Today, we're diving into her predictions for 2026, the good times, the challenging periods, and what we should call, or what we should all be watching out for in the year ahead. And Leslie, welcome to the Electric Spirit Podcast.
Thank you.
Thank
Glad
you.
to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here. And we're going to release it today, and tomorrow starts the Mercury retrograde. So we're trying to get
Yes,
this out just in time.
yes.
So, well, you studied astrology for over 30 years and worked with more than 5,000 clients. When you look at the astrology of 2026 as a whole, what's the overarching theme or headline lining energy we should be, looking out for or understanding this year?
We've got so many things this year. This is really a year like no other. And I mean that quite literally. Number one, we've got Saturn and Neptune together in the sky. So we've got a Saturn-Neptune conjunction. This only occurs about every 37 years. And I don't have to tell anybody watching how the world has changed in the last year, beginning in 2025. We had Saturn conjunct Neptune in Pisces, and now Saturn and Neptune have both gone into Aries. So Saturn conjunct Neptune in Aries, and Saturn conjunct Neptune in this sign, it has been, well, in this sign and at this degree, which is the 0 degree, which is the beginning degree of the zodiac, actually. It has been so many years since this occurred. I think the last time was 5,000 years ago. if then, it is such a rare and unusual configuration, especially being at the 0 degree of Aries, which literally is the very beginning of the zodiac. So it's almost like in some way, and in many different ways, humanity is starting over. And we've got Saturn in Aries, which rules our structures. Neptune tends to dissolve our structures. And this is the time period that we're in right now. So this is number one. This is quite a significant transit. 37 years ago, we had the same thing in Capricorn, and we saw many, many changes. The thing that comes to mind is the downfall of the Berlin Wall, and there were a lot of other things going on at that time too. Well, we're in the same type of energy again, only it's different. It's always different. And so we're going to kind of be with this energy until about late March. And finally, it's going to lift in late March. And I can't say this is necessarily the greatest energy. I mean, there are always times when some people do better than others, but it's kind of a confusing time in many ways. And Saturn and Neptune is a confusing kind of transit as well.
Wow,
So
that's
this is where
interesting.
we are. Yeah, this is where we are right now. And of course, we just had a major eclipse on the 17th of January. I think it was January. No, actually, it was February. And that was a pretty phenomenal eclipse because it squared Uranus. And this is like a major reset in the world. We've seen so many things happen just in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, that was February 17th.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have
Yes.
that was a solar eclipse.
That was a solar eclipse. They're very powerful, especially since this one squared Uranus. It's still playing out. An eclipse square Uranus is pretty unpredictable. it's hard to know, what it's going to really represent because it can represent so much. It's extremely volatile, as we
Hmm.
can see, in the world right now. And right now, today, the 25th of February, over the next few days, we've got Mars in Aquarius. And Mars is going to hit the 29th degree again in a few days. Of course, it's square Uranus right now. And I think this is going to set off more things that are going to be connected with this eclipse and with the Mars square Uranus, which is an extremely volatile transit. And as evidenced by, well, if nothing else, what's going on in Mexico.
Oh, right,
The
exactly.
volatility there.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we can feel,
So,
because I know a few days before the eclipse, I got a really unexpected text message from somebody. And we
yes.
won't go into that. You know about that. So it was two
Yeah.
things. It's like, oh my gosh, wake up on Valentine's Day to this. And so it can happen a few days before and a few days after or weeks after.
Can happen. It can happen even weeks after.
Oh,
And I look for
gosh.
more things to be happening over the next few days as well. So leading us up to the next eclipse, which is on March 3rd, and this one is in Virgo.
Oh, wow. The
And this
last one
is
was at in Aquarius. I didn't mean to interrupt. That was a,
the last one was in Aquarius, and this
okay.
one upcoming is in Virgo.
Okay. And that's a lunar eclipse. So what does that mean?
It means that it's basically a full moon on steroids. And Virgo is the sign that rules the sixth house of service, of work, and of health. And when we have a Virgo eclipse, it's always a good idea to kind of keep an eye on your health. Of course, this doesn't mean everybody's going to have a problem, but there are going to be a lot of people that are, concerned with their health. And I don't mean necessarily something, terrible or bad. It could be a diet, it could be a workout program, it could be a lot of things, or just trying to improve your diet or thinking about things. I think people, kind of lean in this direction with a Virgo eclipse. Secondly, it does have to do with work. So I think a lot of people are going to be, reconsidering their work, their jobs. Are they happy? This
Yeah.
kind of thing.
I just wanted
And
to say something really quick. I had a client before this, and she's okay with me saying this because she knew I was going to record this. I'm not going to tell her name, but she just like quit her job. Like she just up and quit
yeah,
because
yeah.
somebody yelled at her and she just had enough. And um,
Mm-hmm.
she just abruptly quit and she left and she called me on her way home. So that could have something to do with this, huh?
Oh, absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely. And as a matter of fact, yesterday I was noticing that I'm going to say the majority of people I talked to yesterday, they wanted to know about work. They wanted to know, are they going to leave? Are they going to change jobs? Is there any future where they are? This kind of thing. So, so yeah, I think that we're going to see more and more of that over the next week.
Okay. Does this affect, because I'm a Virgo rising, my boyfriend's a Virgo sun. Would this affect him and I in different ways or
Yeah,
okay.
it will. When you
Mhm.
have a eclipse in your first house like that, it's sort of a reset.
Oh,
The focus when you have a first house eclipse, the focus is going to be on you personally, and you could be dealing with things that affect you personally. It doesn't at all mean it's negative. In some ways, it's almost like a reset.
okay. What about if you're a rising or moon Virgo?
Well, if you're a rising Virgo, then it's going to still hit your first house. So it's a form of a reset or a reconsideration of where you are, what you're doing. The eclipse is all about you personally. So I think a lot of times with that, people reconsider what they're doing, their lives, this kind of thing. Now, if you have a Virgo moon, the moon rules your emotional life, your home life. So if you've got an eclipse falling on your moon, it's going to affect your emotional life. It could affect, the moon rules the home. In a man's chart, the moon rules women. So it would affect any women in his life, which could include the mother,
Mm-hmm.
the wife, the girlfriend, anybody
Yeah.
like this, or
Huh.
it could be some other woman. Or
Interesting.
it could affect you in a kind of an emotional way somehow. Of course, it depends on what it does. If it makes a trine from your moon, it's going to be pleasant. If it makes some kind of a square, it's going to be a little bit more difficult.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then does it, because the eclipse is in the retrograde, does that make it even more potent or?
In some ways, yes. What I've noticed with eclipses, when we have a retrograde Mercury at the time of an eclipse, sometimes it's like nothing really happens on that day. And, something will always happen with an eclipse, even if it's something minor. We're going to see something we can point to and say, oh, that was the eclipse. So it could delay it. And I think also, since this moon does oppose Mercury and Mercury is retrograde, I think we're going to see a lot more confusion, lack of clarity. You could get lost driving. You could lose your car keys. You could forget what you're saying. It could be all kinds of things. Mercury retrograde, especially at the beginning of it, which is where we are now. On the West Coast, Mercury turns retrograde tonight. For the rest of us, it's tomorrow, but we might as well say it's retrograde. And the beginning of it is it's called the stationary retrograde. And that means the planet is standing still. And that's when it's at its most powerful, for better or worse, depending on what it's doing in your chart.
Oh, I see.
So it's a little
Interesting.
bit
Yeah.
more confusing and crazy. And, a retrograde Mercury, things break down. Okay. Things have already been breaking down at my house, like the water heater. It could be your coffee pot. It could be anything. But,
Oh,
I have found that when something like that breaks down, it was time for it to break down. It's old. It needs to be fixed. It could be car problems. It could be just about anything. But that's one of the things. Another thing is, people generally don't respond very well to a retrograde. It seems like it sort of interferes in many ways with life. It delays things. It slows things down. But there is a purpose to it. And the purpose is to find out information that we don't have at this time. A lot of times it uncovers information that we actually need to move forward. So it does have a purpose.
oh, wow, that's great.
And it's
Okay,
time to
that's
relax a little bit more if you can. And, don't start anything new. Don't start any new projects. I would say don't start any new relationships. And
yeah.
it leans toward the past, things from the past, people from the past. If you're in business and you have clients that you see or talk to, it's actually the perfect time to go back to people you've known before, or maybe people you've done business with before, or friends, and sometimes even ex-lovers return on a retrograde Mercury. It doesn't mean it's going to work out. It just means that sometimes they return.
Interesting. And that's until March 20th of 26.
That's until March 20th. Yes,
Okay.
until March.
The
And
retrograde.
the
Yeah, not the
retrograde.
eclipse.
And you're right, right.
Right.
Fortunately, it doesn't last that long.
Yeah.
But both the eclipse and the retrograde are about communication. And this eclipse in particular, I think there's going to be a lot of important communication going on. Like, for example, your client that quit her job. I mean, that's
Yeah.
communication. She had enough and said, I'm
Hmm.
done. So
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's very interesting. And are there specific planetary shifts or major transits happening this year? I know we kind of talked about a few of them that you believe will be especially significant for the collective. And what do these shifts, sorry, tend to
yeah,
bring? I wish they were ships.
yeah, yeah. I know.
Right.
We have huge shifts this year. So
Mm.
the first thing we'll talk about, and astrologers have already been talking about it for several years, is Pluto in Aquarius. this is the first full year of Pluto in Aquarius. It went into Aquarius last year. We had a brief, I think we had a brief little pass of it in 2024, I think, or was that 2025? See, it's retrograde. I can't even remember. We had a brief pass of it in 24, and then it went back into Capricorn, and then last year it went into Aquarius, and here we are, and this is the first full year. We have about 19 more years of this, and Pluto rules the collective. And, you know, everybody is born, you know, with a certain Pluto transit, Pluto in Aquarius. It sort of colors the generation you're born in. And Aquarius is going to be about the people. And it may not seem like it's about the people now, but ultimately it's going to be about the people. It's going to be about the will of the people. And I think that it's going to, you know, ultimately it's going to change the world one way or the other. And we can always go back to the last time Pluto was in Aquarius. It was about 256 years ago, which is kind of interesting. This is the 250th year of the United States in July. And during part of the American Revolution, Pluto was in Aquarius. And you can see, you know, that became about the people. What do the people want? They wanted to be free from a king in England to sort of set their own rules and set their own life, you know, not based on what the crown wanted. And then we also saw the French Revolution as well, which was pretty bloody for a time period. And I'm not saying we're going to have anything like that again. Hopefully we've moved past that type of thing, but I do think that it's going to go in the same direction, and it's going to ultimately be the will of the people, as opposed to, you know, what we're seeing right now, which is we're seeing a lot of billionaires, you know, stepping into politics, and we're seeing, you know, sort of an oligarch class we haven't really seen since the late 1800s. This type of thing. And I think we're going to see a lot of changes. And I think people are going to band together more, you know, to push their ideas and this sort of thing. And I think we have a long way to go. And, you know, Pluto in Aquarius isn't necessarily the easiest sign. Of course, I don't know what an easy sign would be for Pluto, really. But I think this is the direction we're going. And I think one of the most significant things we're going to see this year is technology.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to ask you that, how it's, because Aquarius rules technology.
Mm-hmm. Uranus, the two rulers of Aquarius are Saturn and Pluto. Saturn is, you know, Pluto was in Capricorn, and that was really a Saturn period, especially at the end of it. We had COVID when Pluto conjuncted Saturn in Capricorn, you know, and we kind of saw things going back to a more patriarchal type of way, which I don't think that's going to be sustainable. But, you know, Saturn shows us our limitations. Uranus, you know, is the planet of things that are new and technology and inventions and the future, really. So I think it's not just technology. I think it's going to be aircraft, spacecraft, medicine. And I think we're going to see so many new inventions within 20 years, we probably won't even recognize the world.
I believe that. Yeah, for
Mm-hmm.
sure. That's amazing.
So, and most of all, Aquarius is about freedom, and, you know, freedom to be yourself and to do your own individual thing. And I think we're going to see this not only in this country, but across the world.
Oh, great.
That,
Oh, that's,
that doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but I think
yeah.
ultimately that's what it's going towards.
Oh,
So,
that's good. Yeah.
so that's one thing. Okay. Now, if we go to April, actually, if we go to July, we're going to see many more changes. The next change if we go to the end of April, we're going to see Uranus move into Gemini. So it's leaving Taurus now, and it's going to go into Gemini. These are two completely different signs. And Gemini is ruled by Mercury, the planet of communication. So, and it's communication, it's learning, it's knowledge. It's a more rational sign for Uranus to be in, which in many ways I think that's good. In other ways, we'll see. But Taurus is ruled by Venus, and of course, look at everything we've seen in the last few years ruled by Venus. We can start with Venus rules women, and look at the way the laws have changed regarding women, especially when it comes to healthcare and this type of thing. And it also has to do with money. Venus is one of the financial planets. Well, we've certainly seen the rise of cryptocurrency, over these last 7 years. So as it goes into Gemini, I think it's going to sort of shift the direction of things. I like the fact that it's a more rational sign. I think maybe we need that. But communication, learning, our minds, how our minds operate, I think we're going to see a lot more of this. A lot of astrologers associate Uranus in Gemini with war, and hopefully any major war can be avoided. But if we go back and, just simply look at history, we can go back to World War II. Uranus was in Gemini then. Hopefully we won't see that again, but that's where we're going. So that's another major shift. And the time of the real major changes is going to be July, because by the time we get to July, we've got all of these outer planets, okay, Pluto, Uranus, Neptune, Saturn, and even Jupiter, when Jupiter goes into Leo. They're all going to be aspecting each other. And I don't know that there's ever been a time this has occurred. If there has been a time, it's so long ago, it's not in recorded history. So Saturn is going to be, in April, we've got Saturn sextile Uranus, Uranus sextile Saturn and Neptune. Pluto in Aquarius is going to sextile Saturn. It's going to trine Uranus. So sextiles and trines are, very positive transits. So it's almost like when all of this occurs, and we've got to throw Jupiter in there because Jupiter goes into Leo in July, I think we're going to see some incredible shifts. I think a lot of it is going to have to do with AI. And I was listening to a segment on the news the other night, and it was talking about within 18 months, most white-collar jobs are going to be replaced by AI. So
Wow.
it's both good and bad. That's going to create a a difficult situation as people's jobs go redundant. And so we'll have to see where that goes. But like I said, it's both good and bad. It has the potential for both. And
Wow.
I think it's going to have to be. I think they're going to have to put some controls on it.
Yeah, because it's not fair. I mean, we all have to pay bills. I mean,
Right.
yeah.
Right. So we'll see what happens. But if nothing else, it's going to be a very interesting time. I think it's a great time for anybody who works in that field, or any kind of technical or field associated with anything like this. I think that medicine is going to explode, and I think we're going to have a lot of new types of medical things where I think that we're going to see more cures, for more diseases than we've ever seen. So I'm pretty optimistic about that. and I'm optimistic about technology. What I'm not really optimistic about is our ability to, handle and deal with the technology that's coming so quickly.
Hmm. How long is Uranus and Gemini?
So Uranus will be in Gemini for 7 years. They're always 7-year cycles. So that's gonna take us on down the road. Saturn just went into Aries this month. That's a 2.5-year cycle. Neptune cycles are quite long. Let's see how long this Neptune cycle in Aries is going to go. I think this one is going to go through, okay, let's see. Wow. Neptune in Aries is going to be there until March of 2039.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and
That's
this
a long
Pluto
time.
cycle, 20 years. So yes, it's going to be a long time. We're just seeing the tip of the iceberg right now. So
Wow. And then Jupiter's in Cancer, and then Jupiter goes into Leo for a year in July, starting July.
right in July, Jupiter is the planet of luck and gain, and we like Jupiter. Wherever it is in your chart, chances are you're going to see something positive happen. Now, you can overdo things. You don't want to become, overly confident, because if things are going well, they're not always going to go that well. But Jupiter is wisdom. It's expansion. It's justice, really. And so Jupiter is in Cancer right now until July. Cancer is, the United States is a Cancer country. So I do think that there will be some things that, this can help us with. Of course, you've got to also take into consideration that right now, when we go to the U.S. chart, Jupiter's actually squaring Saturn in the U.S. chart. And this is kind of limiting, but it won't be there. It won't be there forever. It'll move on. And of course, it's good for all of the water sign people. And then when Jupiter goes into Leo, we'll see another shift I think it's actually the 30th of June that it goes into Leo. So every year Jupiter changes signs. So every year our area of luck changes as well.
Oh, that's interesting. So they might come
Yeah.
into more money or just be lucky, or would they be lucky in love too? Or
Yeah. I mean, Leo rules the fifth house of love. So I think we're going to, definitely see more relationships. I don't know. There may be some people that remember or maybe have read about the summer of love. Remember in the 60s, we had the summer of love. That was Jupiter in Leo.
oh,
So I don't know that we're going to see that again this year, but yes, Leo rules the fifth house of love. So I think we're going to see more relationships.
oh, nice. That's really great.
Mhm.
And are
Yeah,
there,
and
oh yeah, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Leslie.
well, I think Leo is, I think that people become a little bit more extravagant, a little more flashy. We may see people becoming, a little more outgoing and this kind of thing, or it could affect the way you dress. You could start to dress in a more flamboyant manner, or, anything like this. So I think Leo is kind of a fun sign.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
hopefully it will manifest that way. I think we could use some fun for a while.
Yeah, right. That's great.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. So now
Yeah.
in July, okay, we've got to, look at the first thing it does. The first thing Jupiter does is it opposes Pluto in July. So I don't know that I see this as fun. I think a lot of people are going to have some very strong opinions. Well, they do already, but I think we can, expect to see that in July. I think this could involve money. I think it could involve the uncovering of things. And, Jupiter, Pluto, unfortunately, it's associated with terrorism as well. So this is the first transit that Jupiter is going to make when it opposes Pluto. Now, as we go on down the road, it's going to change and it will move away from Pluto. Actually, the very first thing that Jupiter does in Leo is it's going to sextile Uranus. So this is kind of technology. We had when we landed on the moon in the 60s, it was a Jupiter Uranus transit. So I think we'll see something like that. And then as Jupiter moves along, okay, let's see, Jupiter Uranus is actually in every way a positive kind of transit. So we'll get a few weeks of that. And then when Jupiter hits 4 degrees, so this is around the week of the 19th, that's when it opposes Pluto. Whatever it is, we'll probably see a little bit before then. And then as we go into August, Jupiter is going to start to move away from Pluto, which is a good thing. And ultimately, if we go on into September, we've got Jupiter actually trine Saturn. So Jupiter trine Saturn is a good thing. It's progress. It's moving forward. This type of thing coming up. So I think it's going to be an interesting time.
Oh, interesting. Well, that's good.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we'll have some positive things, and then as we go on down the road, these signs will become more and more entrenched. By the time I'm going to go so far as to say, by the time we get to the end of this year, we may not recognize things. It may be so different even by the end of this year. And, it's sort of, okay, we're going from the sort of not the greatest Saturn conjunct Neptune. Once we get on down the road, Uranus goes into Gemini, and all of these outer planets are making positive aspects to each other. This is kind of the time when, humanity needs to rise above certain things. This is our opportunity, to make some positive changes in the world.
Wow. And what are
And
the dates of that again?
it's
Sorry.
sort of a turning point. Either, we either make some positive changes or we go down the wrong road. But I think we can make some positive changes. And the dates, well,
Yeah.
Uranus goes into Gemini the latter part of April. So by the time we get to May, the planets are all beginning to aspect each other with the exception of Jupiter. Jupiter's not quite there yet. And I've been looking at this for years. There it is. I've got it
Oh,
in
wow.
my book.
Yeah.
So all astrologers have been looking at it for years, saying, what is this going to be? And, I think a lot of people, were hoping that the world would be sort of a better place at this time.
Yeah.
But it isn't perfection, but
Hmm.
in many
Yeah.
ways,
Hmm.
it can only help. It can only be a good thing.
Sure. Definitely. And are there certain months that, are there certain or there are important dates or times or any other times this year that we need to mark on our calendar or
Yeah.
besides those?
July,
Yeah. Hmm.
okay, July is when all of these planets come together, and it's going to be an incredible month, really. On the 15th, Neptune sextiles Uranus, Uranus sextiles Neptune. I mean, this is just a absolute lineup of positive transits with the outer planets. On the 17th, Uranus trines Pluto. On the 20th, Jupiter trines Neptune. Jupiter opposes Pluto as well on the 20th, but it trines Neptune. That's creativity. On the 21st, Jupiter sextiles Uranus. On the 25th, Neptune sextiles Pluto. So this is pretty amazing, really. And remember that trines and sextiles are all positive. And I think that this is some kind of a breakthrough. And we can expect massive change, and you know, it is going to go in one direction or the other. I think it's going to bring a lot of good in the world, but this is when we really need to be aware as, global citizens, what's going on. Now is our time to begin to rise above some of the things that we're dealing with now.
Yeah. Well, would you say that March is probably the worst month of the year and July the best, or of 26?
Well, I think we're going to have some chaos in July as well. I think that in the bigger picture, July is a pretty good month with all of these things. Now we're going to start the month out with Mars. Mars goes into Gemini, and Mars will conjunct Uranus. So this is pretty crazy. This is the weekend of actually, it's the 4th of July weekend. So we're going to see a lot of celebrations, more probably than we've ever seen, with it being the 250th anniversary. But Mars Uranus is pretty unpredictable. It can be a lot of excitement, and I certainly think that there are going to be a lot of fireworks with that. Literally, I think we'll see firework shows with Mars and Uranus, but I think we can also see some things, not going as planned as well around the world. Mars and Uranus is pretty volatile. So
Interesting.
so that's the beginning of the month, and then as we go on and these planets begin sextiling and trining each other, I think that'll be better. And I think that in the bigger scheme, it's a period where we either break through some of the stuff we have going on, or we don't. But I think that actually we will. On the 14th, we've got a new moon in Cancer. Cancer is supposed to be one of the most patriotic signs, but we have to remember, what's patriotic for one person is not patriotic to the next. And then on the 29th, we've got a full moon in Aquarius. And, again, I go back to Uranus. This full moon is going to conjunct Pluto. That's going to be a heck of a full moon too. So I think the beginning of the month starts out with a bang, and I think the end of the month is going to end with a bang as well. So it's not all great, but it is a period where I think we can see many breakthroughs.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
And
But
new
yeah.
inventions and this kind of thing as well. So there's one other period where to me this too could be breakthroughs, or we could call it breakthroughs or breakdowns. And the 15th through the 17th of April is significant because we're going to have 7 planets in Aries. That's 7 out of 10 planets that Western astrologers look at.
Wow.
That's a lot. That's a lot. So
What does
we'll
that
see.
mean? Is that good
Well,
or bad?
it can go either way. Aries, being the first sign of the zodiac, it rules, things that are new. We're going to see a lot of new things this year, new beginnings, new opportunities. But, Aries is ruled by Mars. Mars is the planet we call the god of war. So, to me, this is, breakthroughs, breakdowns. It can kind of go either way. And in some ways, this might be like a, let's just say it's a point of no return, because we're not going back to the way the world was. We're not going back. I mean, we may go ultimately back to, some of the way the world was, but we're on a fast trajectory right now. And I really think that we need to look forward as opposed to looking back. There are good things looking back. There are bad things looking back. But Aries is about looking forward. And I think that's the best thing we can do. And I think that we can manifest this energy personally. For example, if there's something that you have been putting on the back burner, something that you really want to do, whatever that is, the time is now.
Wow,
with Saturn
okay.
in
Yeah.
Aries, and in particular in April. That's going to be all those Aries planets. Is going to be real significant.
Oh, wow, okay. That's
So
great.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And the best thing we can do is to sort of look at the energy and channel it appropriately in your life. I always say, take control of the energy. Don't let it control you. You take control of it. And let's say you want to write a book. Well, maybe April's the time to start it. Or you want to start a business, or you want to change your hair. It could be something simple or it could be something bigger, but I think that's the time to move forward on certain things.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
create some positivity in your life.
Yeah, that's great. From a financial and economic perspective, what do you see unfolding this year? Are there caution periods or any opportunity windows for money?
Well, I think it's both, really.
Okay.
Of course, the stock market is at an all-time high, so there's always opportunity there, but the stock market is kind of unpredictable, so I'm not telling everybody to jump into the stock market. That's just one opportunity where a lot of people have, seen some gains. Some people haven't. A lot of people haven't. But I think that's one thing. I do think that there's a period coming up next month in March, and I do think we need to be really careful, and I think we need to be as conservative as possible too, because especially in the United States, because Saturn in Aries is going to move along, and by the end of the month, Saturn is going to square Jupiter in the chart of the U.S. Saturn square Jupiter, Jupiter is, it's the money planet, and Saturn is restriction. And I'm not at all crazy about this. To me, this is not a good transit for financial matters. I think there's no doubt we'll see certain things that slow down, don't do well. So I think, to me, this period goes into April. So far, from what I've been looking at, I see that as really a cautionary period.
Okay.
So we're almost there.
Yeah.
And I think we'll see major events at this time in the U.S. And I'm going to say starting mid-March. It could be sooner. And we'll take this through. We might as well just take it through the end of April, really. So I think we've got some interesting times ahead, and I would be very cautious at that point
Oh, okay.
financially. So
Okay. So don't take any risks mid-March to end of April of 26.
right, right.
Okay.
Or I would go so far as to say, be careful. If you take a risk, make sure you know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
for sure.
hmm
I felt that psychically, I felt that the housing market could crash this year. I was sensing more from the spirit world. They were telling me September. I don't know if you could, using your astrology, verify that or.
Okay. Well, let's go to September, and see what we've got. We're going to come into the U.S. Uranus return this year. Uranus is 6 degrees in the chart of the U.S. of Gemini. Uranus gets up to 5. Hard to know what this is going to bring, other than Uranus is extremely, unpredictable as we go on into the year. We could say starting in September, October, and let's just take it on through the end of the year. Jupiter will oppose the moon in the U.S. chart. So the moon has to do with the people. Moon also rules housing too. So So we could see some changes at that point. Absolutely.
Wow, that's amazing.
So
Hmm.
yeah, absolutely see some changes.
I hope
So,
so.
last year we had the Pluto return, and that was to me, that was a pretty dark period. Of course, it didn't start last year. The last few years we've been in the Pluto return. We've seen many changes. Now we're going to hit the U.S. Uranus return, and it's at 6 degrees in the sixth house. So, sixth house is the house of, I guess you could say, public health, workers, the military, these kinds of things. So we could see a lot of changes there. And of course, Uranus is just so unpredictable. It's hard to know exactly what we're going to see,
Oh,
but we're
wow.
going to see a lot of unexpected things in these
Okay.
areas.
Because
So
you said it's in the house of health, so could it be another pandemic or no? I kind of don't think we'll have one anytime soon, but
I don't really think so.
hmm.
I don't really think so, but I think it's not impossible that we will have another pandemic. And
Yeah.
just sort of looking at that, I mean,
Hmm.
I would really go on to 2028, 2029. Okay, June of 2028, we've got another major transit coming up. I don't know if you can see this, but
Sort of, yeah.
we've got
But
we've got Saturn is going to square Pluto in 2028. That might be 2028, 29. It's possible we could see one then. I hope not.
I know. But that's
We
what the
could.
spirit world was telling me. There would be another pandemic around the end of, the 20, that it'd be 28, 29. So it's interesting. It's always syncing up with the astrology.
Yeah,
I've noticed that that's happened before when I talk to you with
yeah.
my
So,
predictions. Hmm.
and when you have predictions syncing up to astrology, better pay attention.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
Right. Yeah. And what about relationships? Are there particularly any planetary alignments that suggest, breakthroughs, endings, or, karmic connections this year?
Well, I think that, in terms of breakups, we can always, look at the eclipses. I'm not saying everybody's going to break up on this eclipse. Depends on where it falls in your chart. It a lot of things happen around the time of an eclipse. If we go to July, and Jupiter is in Leo, I think we'll see more. I think we'll see more relationships. Not only that, if we go to mid-June, Venus goes into Leo. So Venus in Leo is always a pretty good time for relationships. Of course, now that Pluto is in Aquarius, we've got to take this into consideration as well. It looks like around the 17th, 18th of June, we've got Venus opposing Pluto. Again, it doesn't mean everybody's going to break up, but that might be sort of a tense time. But then we go on and, Venus goes on through the sign of Leo, which is actually quite pleasant. And we'll have a period of time, the first part of July through about the 9th, where both Venus and Jupiter are in Leo. So I think that's going to be pretty phenomenal. I think it's going to be a little bit of a happier period, and I think people will be more focused on relationships at that point.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's good.
Mm-hmm. So we've
Yeah.
we've got we've got that going on, and I guess the one thing that we haven't really talked about, we've got changes in the north and south node, coming up again this year. It's in Pisces and Virgo right now, and it's going to switch. Let's see when that change is coming. Okay, July, I think I remember. Yeah, let's see. Okay, there we go. The 28th of July, it looks like. 27th, 28th. The North Node goes into Aquarius. South Node goes into Leo.
Hmm.
This sort of changes their karmic destiny.
Interesting.
And yeah, so Aquarius, of course, is the sign of freedom.
Wow.
Leo is the opposite, and Leo, to me, when I see Leo and think about the world, I think, well, we're going to see a lot of grandstanding in the world, that's for sure.
Huh.
Um, but we'll see a lot of changes with that as well. The North and South Node, go through 18-month cycles, and you'll notice when this changes every 18 months, we pretty much see a lot of changes in the world with that as well.
Interesting. It's interesting, that my north node's in Aquarius, my south node's in Leo. How would that affect me?
Okay, so your North Node is in Aquarius, so you're going to hit the North Node return, which happens around the same age for everybody. And I think that, in some ways, it's not the easiest of transits to go through. Depends again on what is it, what is the North Node doing? What is it aspecting in your chart? But everybody's going to experience this at the same time. I remember it being sort of mildly difficult, but nothing, nothing too overwhelming.
Okay. Interesting. And
So,
then the North and South Node are in Pisces and Virgo right now. I'm a Pisces, my boyfriend's a Virgo, and I have clients that they're Pisces Virgo like couples. How does that affect
mhm.
couples or when it's like that?
well, well, of course, they're opposites,
Hmm.
um, and opposites can bring balance to each other. So I think in some ways it brings balance, and I think in other ways you can see the differences, between the two people as well. So it's kind
Interesting.
of, in my opinion, kind of a little bit of a mixed bag, but balance can be good.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's good.
Do you notice that? Do you balance each other out to some
Yes.
extent?
Yes. And
Mhm.
how long ago did this happen? Did the North and South Node go into Pisces and Virgo?
This was in, well, almost 18 months ago. I think it was
Yeah.
in, let's see, can't remember right now. Where are we? Okay, I believe this was in, I think it was in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
2024. Let's see here. Okay, 2025, January of 2025 was the start of it, and
Okay.
this will go through July of this year before it changes signs again.
That's interesting because I met my boyfriend end of November of 24. So I wonder if that had something to do with it or maybe not.
Well, it kind of seems like maybe it did, but
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of other things, that we could look at as well at that time. So I'm
Yeah.
sure I'm sure it was part of it. I'm sure it was part of it.
Interesting.
And
Wow, that's really
I can
interesting.
also say that on some level, it's got to be sort of a karmic connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it definitely was or is.
Yeah.
Hmm. Interesting. Um, so for people who are thinking about making major life moves, career changes, relocations, big investments, are there astrological green lights or red flags that people should be aware of?
Well, again, in terms of major investments, I think really we, sort of need to be careful. We need to be careful all year, but I think we especially need to be careful, March, April, let's just say between now, and I'll go so far as to say the end of April. I would be very cautious, know what you're doing at that point. And I think that in terms of, starting new things, trying new things, if we go to the month of July, and look at all these outer planets connecting with each other. You know, just kind of in the bigger scheme of things, I think this might be a good time. Of course, really, you've got to look at your own chart and know, you know, what does this do in your chart? If you've got, for example, if you've got Saturn in Sagittarius and Uranus is going to oppose it, this would not be a good time. So I think that really we need to, you know, take into consideration what does all this do in your personal chart.
I see. Okay. And that's what they could come to you for a reading to see how this is going to affect them.
Right.
Okay.
Timing is really pretty much everything. So,
Hmm. Yeah, for sure.
mhm.
And then are there other eclipses this year, retrogrades, rare planetary alignments that we didn't talk about, or even unexpected events or turning points? And how should people prepare for this?
Well, I think you should prepare for the world to change. Um, you know, here in, you know, the U.S. anyway, this period of March into April, I would say all you can really do is be as conservative as possible, watch, you know, just watch, listen, and, you know, use a lot of discernment. We usually
Mm-hmm.
have about 3 retrogrades a year. This one is coming up. I believe this was the first one. Didn't we start out the year?
Mm-hmm.
No, we didn't start the year out with a retrograde. This is the first one.
We ended the year, I
Okay,
guess,
so
last year on a
we,
retrograde.
we
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we ended it in a retrograde. Okay, so here we are again. Okay, the next retrograde falls on June 29th, and this one is in Taurus. Taurus rules money, by the way, and it retrogrades until about the 23rd of July. Okay, so there's the second one. The third one begins on the 24th of October, and this one is going to be in Scorpio, and that will take us through the 13th of November. Venus is going to retrograde this year. Every other year, Venus turns retrograde. This is a big deal, really. And on the 3rd of October, Venus is going to turn retrograde at 8 degrees of Scorpio. And it doesn't really turn direct until the 14th of November, turns direct at 23 degrees of Libra. So it goes from Scorpio into Libra. And Venus retrograde can really shake up your relationships in some cases. And I always say, well, if you're in a relationship that's kind of tottering on the edge, you know, it could bring an end to it. It's possible. You know, if it's kind of crazy. It tends to bring up things from the past. If there's some type of, you know, contentious, you know, situation or idea in your life, you know, that could come out. You know, a lot of times people do make changes, people do break up, change partners. It's kind of, I think of a Venus retrograde as kind of a karmic transit. And what I mean by that is, I think that whatever is really meant to happen is going to play out at that time. I think people can get back together on retrograde Venus as well. And I think it affects money too. I think that a lot of times money slows down. I think it's, you know, I think it's an interesting time. And I think we take a lot of trips down memory lane, and I think we kind of reassess things. We reassess relationships. We reassess money in many cases as well. So I think that's a pretty interesting time. And we don't have a retrograde Mars this year, thankfully. I'm not crazy about a retrograde Mars. I think it's kind of low energy. I think you've really got to be aware of accidents. But by the time we get to the end of the year, I mean, we're certainly coming into the shadow period of the retrograde Mars, and that turns retrograde on the 10th of January 2027. So by the time we get to the end of the year, we're pretty much in the shadow period of it. I don't know if I mentioned October. Uh, we have another retrograde. This is October 24th, retrograde Mercury, and this one goes through about the 12th or 13th of November. And then we
Okay.
have two more eclipses toward the latter part of the year. And we won't have another eclipse until summer. Okay, the 12th of August, we've got a 20-degree solar eclipse in Leo. And then on the 28th, we've got another lunar eclipse as well, and this one's in Pisces. So once this period is over, we won't have any more eclipses until then.
Okay. So Venus retrograde is that, did you say April 21st to June 4th or no? Am I getting those dates wrong?
Venus turns retrograde. Let's see. Okay, Venus turns retrograde in October.
Oh, October. Okay. Until
October
November.
3rd. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
October
November.
3rd until November 14th, 13th,
Okay.
14th.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see. And then during that time, I also heard from someone it's not a good time to get any beauty treatments done. Is that true?
No,
Like your
it's not.
hair? Okay, like if
No,
you got a
yeah, you don't
facelift
want
during that
you don't want
time.
to. Oh, you don't want to get a facelift during that time. I've seen too many things not work out on that. So,
You know what it reminds me of,
no,
Leslie? There's a
what's
episode of
that?
The Twilight Zone, and there was a
Yeah,
lady, I think her face was all masked up, and they unbandaged, and I don't remember what she saw, but it's sort of like that. It's like,
yeah. I think I remember that one. Yeah.
yeah,
So, yeah. So avoid,
right,
avoid.
exactly.
Venus rules beauty, and
Yeah,
I would be careful about changing hairstyles, buying expensive outfits,
huh.
anything connected with beauty or, and it's a terrible time to get engaged or get married. You want to avoid those dates pretty
Okay.
much at all costs for
Wow,
something like
okay.
that.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Um, wow, it seems like a really interesting year this year.
It, I'm telling
Yeah,
you,
yeah,
I mean, if nothing else, it's going to be very interesting. And, once we
yeah.
get into, July, I think that's a turning point. I think April is a turning point. I think July is a turning point. And I think that by the time we get to the end of the year, we're going to have seen so many changes. It's incredible.
Yeah, because I know it's also in Chinese astrology the year of the fire horse. Because last year was the year of the snake, where we, shredded everything and got rid of things, and then, what is interesting is last year was a 9 year too. That was the year of endings, and now this is a 1 year, so it's about new beginnings. So it's kind of interesting how all that works.
Yeah, it,
Hmm.
it, it is. And I'm
Yeah.
no expert on Chinese astrology, but,
Okay.
I'd say the fire horse sort of fits the astrological picture as far as I'm concerned.
Interesting.
Saturn in Aries. Aries is a fire sign, new beginnings. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think it fits.
Interesting. And then looking at the broader global picture, politics, leadership, world events, do you see any major shifts or themes emerging with that?
I think that in terms of politics, I think that March is going to be a pretty interesting month, um, to say the least. I think this Saturn squares Jupiter in the U.S. chart. This also affects the president's chart as well. I think we have some substantial events coming up in March into early April. And I think that these are going to be pretty major serious events. I think that it isn't. I think there's a shift in terms of the presidency. I think that I think certain things are going to change, and I think some of the things are going to be, deemed unacceptable, basically, that are going on right now. I don't know exactly what they are, but and I think it's going to be a clash of political parties. I think that, we'll see what the financial picture turns out to be. I think this is really one of the most significant times this year.
Oh, wow. March, you mean? Or
March, yeah, and I'm going to say the second half of March, through most of April, if not all of April. So
wow.
yeah, I think we've got
Interesting.
some very interesting times coming.
I bet. Oh my. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, some changes for sure,
Yeah.
and that sort of starts a change. Okay, we go on into, whatever is going to happen here is going to be, coming up. It could be sooner than mid-March, but mid-March through April, I think that's a very significant time. And I think the fall period, late October into November, I think that's going to be a significant shift as well.
Oh. Well, isn't that
So
when there's elections, I think? I think we have
we've
a
got,
governor
yeah,
election or gubernatorial, whatever the heck they call
yeah,
it in California.
gubernatorial, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and the
Interesting.
elections are on the third, and I think we're going to see a change. Definitely think
Interesting.
we're going to see a change.
Huh.
Mhm.
Well, hopefully things get, I mean, better, worldwide, because it just seems like there's a lot of upheaval, like in Mexico, and then what happened in Venezuela and the
Yes,
Middle East, and
Middle East,
hmm
Ukraine, Russia.
right.
Um, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and none of this with the Saturn Neptune conjunction. None of it is too surprising. This is a time of world change and world upheaval, even geopolitical change. So I think we can sort of look at that, um, at least partly. And some of this started a few years ago when
hmm
Pluto was in Capricorn. I think we just saw the fourth year of the Ukraine war.
Yeah.
I think we just saw the anniversary of it. So that takes us back to 2022. And I do remember there were some very unusual planetary lineups. So if we go back to 22, go back to February of 22, well, there's Pluto at 29 degrees of Capricorn. 29 degrees is a critical degree with any planet. We also saw, okay, Saturn at that time. Okay, Saturn was in Aquarius. It was approaching the 29th degree as well. So I don't remember what all of the lineups were, but we saw some pretty harsh planetary lineups in those days,
Yeah.
and it's continued. And of course the Gaza war, which is supposedly ended. Hopefully it has ended for good. We've
hmm
seen that with the Saturn Neptune as well in Pisces all of last year. So none of this is surprising with all of these huge planetary shifts.
Huh. Interesting. And then,
Mm-hmm.
for someone listening who may feel anxious about predictions or uncertainty about the future, how can astrology be used to, like, as a tool to empower others, um, you know, in their lives?
Yeah, well, I think we have to look at the good and the bad. I
hmm
think the good is all of these outer planets changing signs, making some positive aspects. Of course, it doesn't mean everything's going to be perfect for everybody, but if it lines up right in your chart, this could be personal opportunities as well. And
Mhm.
again, we've got what's happening in the world, and we've got our own personal charts. And, again, I think we have to go back to the personal chart. You know, in terms of the world, well, we're sort of all in the same boat, right?
Yeah.
So, no one is alone really. Some people may feel alone, but we're not. We're all part of the same boat in that case. And what's it doing in your personal chart? In times of stress, there are always people who do well. There are always people who don't do well in good times. So I think it comes back to what's in your personal chart, and in some ways, I think staying a little more focused on that might be a good idea at this time.
Yeah. And is it
So
true that the chart changes about every 4 minutes?
the chart, well, the moon changes. The moon is constantly changing, and evolving. So in that respect, yes,
Okay.
yes. Um,
Okay. So
do
if,
the planets change every 4 minutes? No, but the moon is
oh,
constantly transiting through the zodiac, making different aspects. For example, right now the moon's in Gemini square Mercury. So that's about talk and conversation, and here we are.
yeah,
So,
exactly. Nice. And
yeah.
so if someone is a twin, and let's say one was born at noon and the other one was born at 12:20 p.m., uh, would they have different charts or would they be about the same?
They would have different charts because the
Yep.
moon, if nothing else, the moon is going to change positions. It could
Mm-hmm.
go into a sign, it could make another aspect. Um, as far as that goes, we could have the sun changing signs depending on the day, or
Mm-hmm.
one of the other planets might change signs. So, twins are kind of an anomaly in astrology.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there are always similarities. Some of them though are polar opposites. We see that too with twins.
And yeah,
So
right. Because
yeah.
yeah, I usually ask my clients when they come for readings, well, what's your sign? Or when they're an instant reading. And one lady, she just got really upset. She goes, well, I don't believe in that because I have a twin and we're nothing alike and we don't get along. And I'm like, okay, but maybe your charts are different. Maybe your sun
Yeah.
sign's the
Yeah.
same, but your moon could be
Mhm.
different, you know, or
Mhm.
maybe they have different
Yeah.
sun sign, or I don't know.
They could. They could
Who
actually. It's
knows?
possible. They could have
Yeah,
different sun signs. The moon
right.
could go into a different sign. Their ascendant is going
Hmm.
to be different. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that happens.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then you and I talked about maybe collaborating in the future, hosting an event. Maybe we'd put it on Eventbrite where people could come and I could do the psychic readings and maybe you could look at their chart and see for timing if that's something you're
Sure.
still interested. We could
Yeah.
do that. Yeah, that would be fun. So
Absolutely.
everybody will keep people abreast on that. And then, um, yeah, that would be a lot of fun. And I don't know if you just
Yeah.
want to tell people how to find you because you're also on Keen, but they can go to your website and book a reading and what kinds of services you offer people.
Hmm. Well, you can go to my site, lesliehale-astrology.com, and book a reading. And pretty much some astrologers list services. I always begin the session by saying, what would you like to look at today? Do you you know? And a lot of times people want to look at relationships. That's fine. We can do the comparison of charts and see what it looks like that's going to be, whether it's going to be moving forward or not. Or, we could look at, jobs, or we could just do a general reading. This is what's coming up this year, and these are your things you need to watch out for, and then these are the better periods. So it's pretty much up to the client and what they really want to talk about.
Okay, so they would need their birth date and then the time they're
Mhm.
born, but if they don't know the time, then what happens?
It's great if you know the time. If you don't know the time, then we create what's called a sunrise chart, where I read the chart by your sun sign, and that's accurate as well. And there are times that I can actually, based on major world events, or not major world events, but major personal events, there are times I can, rectify the chart and, give you a time of birth or approximate time. That takes, unless there's something, phenomenal that's happened, that takes a lot of time, but every now and then I can do it a little more quickly. So,
Nice.
but we
Yeah.
we can still do it without the time, but the time is preferable. So,
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, for sure. And yeah, that's wonderful.
yeah.
So I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add before we wrapped up or
No, I think we've really covered things. I would say, the next thing to watch for is this eclipse
yeah.
on the 3rd, and the Mars square Uranus. I would say, be careful. This could, at worst, it could be an accident, an argument, something like that. A lot of people may appear or come across as angry or frustrated. So just know that we're going to see a lot of that, and and then we'll just go from there. And
Yeah,
yeah,
that's great. Well, I really appreciate you being here, Leslie, and we'll keep everybody updated on future events and um yeah, and you have a lot of information on your website too to tell like what's happening, right? I saw that today. So that's
yes,
good.
go to the blogs on my
Yep.
website, and
Yeah.
yeah, and they're usually pretty current. So
Great. I really appreciate you being here, and I hope to have you back because I was thinking about maybe we could go over some charts or something, or um,
sure,
it'd be
absolutely.
interesting because I actually predicted John F. Kennedy Jr.'s death and him and Carolyn Bessette Kennedy dying in an accident in the water a year before it happened. It'd be interesting to look at their charts and see, I don't know, or the O.J. Simpson murders or something. If people want to,
Yeah,
contact us and let us know what they're interested in, they could always do that too, or contact.
yes, yes. Those things are always just so fascinating,
Hmm.
to look at.
Yeah, they
Absolutely.
are. For sure.
Let us
That would be
know.
great. Yeah, for sure. And I'm so glad that you were here and thank you so much.
Okay, well, thank you for having me.
You're welcome.